Today's project had me going down to the hardware store to grab some tension rods, also some 1x6 pieces of board. First thing I want to do though is I wanted to cut each of these 1x6s at 24 inches. I'm going to build a box and I need all four sides to be equal lengths. Once I got all four pieces cut, it was time to form the box. I got the top and the bottom, and then I put the sides on. And the way I fastened them with my brad nailer, and I put all of those in with 3 nails on each side. I also cut another board and I put one at the top and the bottom so that I can make some strength with the box. Cut one last piece and I made a shelf with it, and I put that in and cut that. Next I went to some 1x4s and I cut 2 of these pieces because I want to make a drawer. I also got some wood glue out and put that down so that I could put my braces on there with little cut pieces of 1x2. Once I got those nailed in, the glue's going to set up in about an hour and make it really strong. Next, it was to take those 1x4s and I got to build a door that's going to go across the whole front. So I took 7 pieces and I'm going to build a brace also for those. Once I get those in, I'm going to brad nail all of those down and put them and make them really strong. I also want to make sure this door is really strong, so I'm going to put more than 1 nail in each of those. Also, I did lay some glue down to make it strong, but I need to cut this door in half. So I cut it right down the middle, pulled it apart. Next, I traced out an outline of a coffee mug. Take some black craft paint. I'm going to go ahead and just paint that all on there. I think it turned out really cool. I love adding that special little decor to all of my projects. It kind of just gives it a little bit more to it when you take a look. It actually turned out really nice. I like it. It only took 1 coat of paint to make it good. Now the door that's on the bottom, it's time to put the hinges on. I always want to make sure that I pre-drill because I don't want to split any of the wood when I put the screws in. I'm going to put a hinge on both sides of this. Next, I want to make sure when the door opens that it doesn't flop open, so I grabbed a little black chain and put that on. Now, the kicker right here is on the tension rod. This is where I'm going to hang my cups from. I'm going to put those brackets in, and it's adjustable, so I can put it in there with the little bumpers on each side, put it in place. I can make it smaller, tighter, but it looks really good in there. I'm going to put some knobs on these doors. That's the last one. And then I'm going to take it inside and mount it. Once I do that, I'm going to grab some hooks, put them across that tension rod on the top, and I'm going to start hanging my cups. And it's also time, once I get these hung, to go ahead and decorate. I'm going to put some of my coffee pods in there also and put a little sign, close it up. Look at that. Actually looked out pretty good. I like how it turned out. And the cool thing is the doors open really nice and smooth, including the bottom one. And look at that. Super cool. I can actually leave it open as part of the decor, and it turned out nice. I can change all my mugs, and I just like how smooth it is when it closes. And the cool thing is, it looks like this little smiley face is looking at me. I can actually not unsee this from now. But it turned out cool. I hope this inspires you to build your own inexpensive tension rod coffee holder. Thank you for watching Home Talk, and we'll catch you next time. My neighbor had an old dresser across the street, but I knew I could fix it up, and the first thing I got to do is get rid of all the rotted and torn up materials. Then I got to take off all of the hardware and the doors on the bottom. I'm not going to need those for the transformation I'm going to make. I also want to get rid of the hardware on the drawers. Now on the top of this, it was pretty beat up. It had been out in the rain and the sun. So I started with 80 grit sandpaper and started going up and down. Once I got it all sanded off, I also needed to go with 120 up to 220. Now sanding produces a lot of dust. So the next thing I did was make sure I got my air hose out and got all the dust off. Got to make sure we get that clean as good as possible. Now I wanted to get rid of the railings that were on the bottom because I don't need those. I want an open concept. So I cut each one of those and pulled them apart. Next, I got some Lawan plywood. This is great for shelving. I wanted to put this on the bottom because it's also waterproof just in case anything spills on it. Once I get it in place, just some small staples will hold it exactly where I need it. Next, it was time to prep for painting. I'm going to fill all the holes from all the hinges and everything like that. And then it's time to go ahead and put the primer on. Primer always goes before paint. You need something to adhere it to the cabinet. The next step was to put some good high quality cabinet paint on there. Once that primer's done, you just go ahead and put all the paint on. This one took 3 coats. Next, it was time for staining. I wanted to add some shelves on the middle, and I wanted to go with a dark stain, so that's why I went with walnut. So I'm going to do all the boards for shelving and that Lawan plywood on the bottom. It's going to get some stain also because I want every one of them to match. Then it was time to do the top. Once it's all sanded down, I put the stain on there, and it took actually 2 coats of stain. You ever see that professional finish that gives it just a durable, clean look? Well, that's what this polyurethane is for. You put that on and it's going to give it a nice, shiny look to it, and it's going to make it nice and durable. A couple of coats of those. Now it's time back for that middle shelf. I took those boards that I stained earlier and I put them in place and used a few brad nails to hold them down. Now it's time for some new backing. I got some of that Luan plywood extra hanging out, so I grabbed some of that and cut it to size. Again, some staples all the way around the edges will hold it in place. Now it's time to get some new hardware. This is really inexpensive and it changes the look, and it's black so it stands out. Now the drawers need some liners in there because it's kind of rotted out, but it looks good. We're going to close that up. You remember that old dresser in the driveway? Now look at this. What a transformation. I love how it turned into this kitchen island buffet table. It just turned out absolutely amazing. There's no reason to throw an old piece of furniture out when you can look at it, use your imagination, and upcycle it into a work of art. I hope you enjoyed this project as much as I did, and I hope it inspired you to do your own upcycle project.
I started with a pre-cut pine board that I bought from Lowe's that was about the same size as the stainless steel film that I bought on Amazon. The board was a little bit longer, but I measured and cut off 3 inches. I wanted the stainless steel to wrap around the edges of the board. For the legs, I measured and cut 1x3 and 1x4 inch pine boards to 32 3/4 inches. Using wood glue and brad nails, I completed 4 legs. For the shelves, I cut 1x3 inch pine, making 2 boxes, which I glued and nailed in place. I made 2 of these shelves. I attached the legs to the outside of the bottom shelf. Then I flipped it upside down and attached the top shelf the exact same way. For the bottom shelf, I measured and cut 9 1x4 inch pine and glued and nailed them into place. For the sides of the island, I added 1x3 inch pine cut to form the shape of a V, and I glued and nailed them on each side. For the feet, I cut squares out of 1x3 and then attached casters to those squares. They were glued and nailed in place on the bottom of each leg. I laid the top in place and measured around to make sure that it was an equal distance. Then I nailed it in place. I carefully laid the film on top and smoothed it, pulling the film a little bit at a time and smoothing it into place. For the edges, I bent the film over the sides and stapled them in place. I folded the corners as you would wrap a gift and stapled those in place. I finished the island by staining and sealing all of the wood. It looks really great in my kitchen. I hope this inspires you to create a piece of furniture for your home.